Hello and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler, your aforementioned Spooky Chris, and I thank you for joining me. I am excited today to be having a conversation with author Alex Grass. Indie author Alex Grass has written several works, including A Boy's Hammer, Drek and Black River Lantern. His newest book, Infernal Tramps, is due out on July 15th, and this is a collection of short horror that offers a full tour of grotesqueries that will threaten to swallow you whole. Alex has also had work featured in Macabre Magazine, Maudlin House, and the Genre Society, and I invite you to listen along as I speak with Alex. Thank you, Alex, for joining me. How are you today?
Very good, Chris. Thank you for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. I'm just gonna just forge right into the forest here. What were you reading and watching as a kid? You know, what kind of got your mind going?
Well, I thought about this a lot, and I think that some of it I don't know whether or not this is the case, but look, I went to Hebrew school growing up, and we were still like at a pretty close distance to there were still like a lot of Holocaust survivors. So I remember reading like much too much about the Holocaust as a young child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was that. And then at the same time, because I was sort of in this, like parochial environment, there were all these things, and this is like also like we're after the Satanic Panic is just over, there were all these things that you weren't like supposed to be reading. And I'm not going to say that I have oppositional defiance disorder, but just the idea, if someone tells me like something's not supposed to be read, then I want to read it, and I remember like going to my Hebrew school and like having Marilyn Manson's autobiography, Long Hard Road Out of Hell, and like people looking at me like I was just like, a freak, because I am, but I'm all right with it. Um, and then, I think that like for a kid, television is huge, especially if you're coming from, I imagine we were probably in about the same era. I'm not gonna ask because I don't do that to anybody.
I'm
But
a late. I was born in the middle of '70s, so I'm a Gen X or '80s kid.
okay, all right. So we're pretty close. My wife's a Gen Xer, you know. She says she robbed the cradle. And I say not if the baby tricked you. But it was still that era. I mean, even that difference of like a decade, between the two of us, it was still that era where like television was huge. It was a monolith. You
Yeah.
watched what was on. That was it. And like the powers that be told you what you could watch. So I remember watching a lot of like, whatever horror they'd have on like USA Network, or like here's a good example. I remember watching, because it was on ABC, the whole Stephen King The Shining mini series.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've never gone back to rewatch it because I remember like when I was a kid, I loved it, and I just have no interest in destroying that memory.
That's fair. I remember catching Salem's Lot and well, I don't know. I can't remember if it's 80 maybe, but I remember catching that and like having to walk home from a neighbor's house in the dark, and it was 2 nights, 3 nights, and like yeah, we had to walk home in the dark, and I was like, oh no.
Oh yeah, and that's that's like kind of I think what a lot of us are reaching for in
Yeah.
the horror genre. It's like being, because when you're an adult, it's pretty rare you could be that terrified and in that way. You know what I mean? Like you could be mugged and have the pants scared off you, but it's not quite the same as like you're walking home in the middle of the night and you're like, a literal monstrous abomination is going to come out and suck my blood until I'm dead. And then I will be a prisoner in my own body, doomed to kill my family members because they're the ones physically closest to me. You know, that's
Yeah, that
that. It's a whole other level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the funny irony of when you watch any ghost kind of show is they're always looking for ghosts, but when they think they see a ghost, quote unquote, they freak out because I mean, it's like you found what you were looking for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the best take, just as an aside, the best take I've ever heard on ghosts, and I'm not saying like, listen, I take nothing off the table. You know what I mean? I'm pluralistically agnostic, you know? Um, philosophically, I'm not going to get into the whole belief thing, but like, there's this thing in like, they razzed John Edwards. You know, they really roasted him on South Park. And there was this part where, like at the end, you know, the voice of wisdom, who's Kyle, he says, "Is like, is that what we really want for our loved ones, anyways? For them to just be hanging around, you know, like watching what we do?" Yeah, but you know, ghost stories. It's like it's also the genesis of the horror genre. So you can't like trash it too much, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Real life or narrative doesn't matter.
oh, absolutely. I think that's the fun of that is that you can pragmatically say, well, it doesn't make sense, but
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
there's a lot of real world things that you're like, this doesn't make any sense, but I am seeing it with my own eyes. It's happening. So,
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, if you've ever been caught in like a bureaucracy, you know, feedback loop, you know that like basically the human social design doesn't make sense, you know? And lots of things don't make sense. The idea that there could be like another plane, you know, in which they're occupied by you know beings that like are only perceivable on that plane. I don't know. It's not that hard to sell. It's a hard sell, but it's not that hard to sell.
yeah, there's a lot of hard sells we buy into. So it's it's in the
Yeah,
grocery bag.
yeah,
So
for sure.
so you grew up a lot around a real like a lot of heavy history and stuff. Like how did that kind of influence your childhood and affect the childhood you had?
Well, I remember that like you know I think I took for granted that like certain things were known, or maybe like the flip side that like, you know, because of the dynamic between, you know, me and the old man, it'd be kind of like not that like certain things were known, but you were a fool if you didn't know certain things, you know? So like as a kid, I heard many more stories about Winston Churchill and Lyndon Baines Johnson and you know Theodore Roosevelt than I think like any child who you know whose parent didn't work at like the New York Historical Society ever heard, you know. Um, I remember my old man would sit down and he would like read excerpts. God, like at the I could have killed myself at the time. I was so bored, you know. Looking back, you value these things, and it's like a crazy thing. But like you know, adults tell you, you know, like one day you'll thank me, or one day you'll understand, you know. And like you get old enough, and it's kind of true. But he would say he'd like read a speech by Winston Churchill, and I would just be like, Jesus Christ, I just want to play PlayStation. Come on. But you know, there is this sense of it too because you know, I was in school when the huge um emigration from the Soviet Union happened of Russians and Jews, particularly Russian Jews. So like everyone was hyper aware of you know the stories about people coming from like and having nothing and like coming to America and being so grateful to be here. And you know, like we even lived it. Like, well, I remember going to Hebrew school, and there was like a Russian kid, and we butted heads. You know, we were like profoundly culturally different people. You know, and uh, you know, so there was a lot of that, and a lot of meeting. You know, we're you know. Yids, we're a varied group, so there's you know there's a lot of different kinds of us out there, and so you know, you became aware of where people were from. I think the interesting thing is that like I was never it never blew my mind like if I met, you know, like a Jewish guy who'd been living in China or Japan. I'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But I met a Jew who worked for my old man. I said, "Where are you from?" He's like, "Alabama." I'm like, "There's Jews in Alabama?" That was like a bombshell. I'm like, I get what? And he's like, "Yeah, we're out there." I told that story. My uncle's like, "What about Driving Miss Daisy?" I'm like, "That's a movie." But then I looked into it and it was like pretty accurate. I'm like, ah, shit.
Um, so so what when did you kind of get interested in writing and what inspired that?
I always wrote, always. I would be scribbling in loose leaf. I did like, I guess you'd call it doggerel, just like vulgarity that rhymes, Like I remember, but I was always writing, always. Long before I had a notion of being a writer, I would just, write out like I remember being like 11 years old and like hearing gangster rap and thinking like, well, I could probably do something like that. And there is something very offensive and very not suited to our time closeted away somewhere, you know? Just like the kind of stuff that it was tweets you'd never hear from me again. Um, but I think that like I first seriously considered like like writing narratives and making something of it. I didn't have a notion of like being a professional writer, but you know, I just like I don't know. I caught a bug um somehow, and I wish I could remember the cause, but I just started writing when I was in mortuary school, and like there was, what I think it was? They give you this exam when when you're when you take an entrance exam for the school, and like part of it is like they evaluate your English comprehension, right? And I remember, like I was a super, super insecure kid. So I was going around and being like, well, what'd you score? What'd you score? What'd you score? And I found this girl named Allison, and me and her got like the highest scores, right? And like I took from that, I'm like, I think this means I have an excellent vocabulary. I think this means I'm meant to be a writer.
Nice.
I had like, so I said to Allison, I said, like, I might write a book. You read the book? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, will you edit the book? She's like, that's a lot of work. I'm like, ah, so you say. And and then, everything like, I'm trying to think of like I was just always writing. And then, when I was in law school, I was writing papers and like, me and my wife were totally different people. My wife says that she would take a 20-hour multiple choice exam before having to write an essay,
Oh
you know?
wow.
And for me, like law school was a dream. It's like, what's the exam? You sit down and you write for 4 hours. I'm like, sold, you know? But I don't know. It was always there. Causes are probably easier to identify way back along the line, Like maybe there's some formative event because memory's a tricky thing, right? You
Yeah.
you never like I hadn't thought about I'm trying to remember who it was. I hadn't thought about like a schoolmate in years. Like hadn't had a thought about them in 10 years. And then I saw something and then that's how the mind works. It's just buried in there. All these memories. So who knows what the real reason is?
Now, along with writing, you have a family. How do you make time for writing? And I say this as someone with a kiddo. So,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
understand.
Well, I think we both know the answer, and the answer is you don't make time, you
Yeah.
know? But I squeeze it in. I squeeze it in where I can. I got like, I'm working at home, but I don't know. The hours go, man. I mean, they go. it's like someone put some lighter fluid in a butane torch under time. It just goes. And so I think that like when I can get a couple hours in, I dive into it, and there's really no like scheduling. I would say generally it's usually, an hour or two in the morning and then an hour or two at night. Unless, like right now I have the book coming out, so I got to do a lot of book non-writing book related stuff. But I don't know. I keep it pretty routine, and you know, I kind of accept distractions, I think. Because if you don't accept distractions, then I think, if you have a personality like mine, you're going to get frustrated and you're just going to, be kind of a shit to be around. But
It seems like a lot of us just learn to like it's interesting because I almost wonder if it's a more modern thing. It's because there's so more distractions than ever. I wonder if we just adapt, if we just find ways to adapt and just it's part of the noise of
yeah,
life.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it could be. Like yeah, in the 18th century, it's like, well, it's winter time, we're not growing crops, it's dark, and we have a lot of time between morning and night. What do we do? Like I don't know. I think I'll read for 8 hours, write for four, you know.
Got to
But
write letters to everybody.
you gotta write letters to everybody. Yeah. Oh my
Well,
God. I remember. Did you have pen pal programs when you were in school?
yeah, I can't remember if it was through school, but yeah, like because I had a pen pal in Australia for a
Yeah.
little while.
I had one in Scotland, and I told him, "Oh, kids are so stupid, man." But I told him that like whoever the character is that Mel Gibson plays in Braveheart, I said like, yeah, people call me that character's name because they think I'm like him, you know? Just like you're a kid, you say these fucking cringy things. It was just like the most preposterous thing. I think when I was writing it, I was wearing a yarmulke because I was in school. Like, could there be anyone less Scottish, you know? And then the funny thing is, I was working overseas, and I met this other Jewish kid named Adam, and he was from Scotland, and he wasn't just from Scotland. He had like you could not understand any like you know, and but he was like not what you would expect. You didn't expect, Scottish people you expect to be like flinty, like sort of like I guess like a hard edge and a secret warm heart or whatever. But I didn't expect for to like what I got was like Woody Allen from Edinburgh, you know? He was the most insecure person I've ever met. And like I was a super insecure person. So I just remember hearing all the time, just like, don't worry about it, man. You think about it too much. And all of a sudden, I'm like telling this kid, it's like, Adam, don't worry about it. People like you. Jesus, is this what I sound like? This is exhausting.
Now, you have a book coming out on July 15th, Infernal Tramps. Can you tell me a little about it?
Sure. It's all short stories. The shortest one, I think, is, under 1,000 words, and the longest one's about 9,000 words. And I like to describe it as if Clive Barker and David Cronenberg got together and smoked bath salts and then wrote something, this is what they would write. Or alternatively, if H.P. Lovecraft was not only not sexually repressed, but so sexually expressive that he was dysfunctional. Or like the MK Ultra program decides to write the Brothers Grimm. Any of those. They just whacked out. And I love it. I love it. Like all the, part of the process with books is like you're getting like you're getting advanced copies of books out to people and you're sending them out to other authors and reviewers. And like everybody, there's like just like some great, but everybody's like the consensus is it's weird. It's a weird book. It's a really weird book, because I'm not going to spoil the stories, but like the very first story, there's a pest control system, right? That basically, well, I guess I will ruin it, that like the installer of the system uses to regenerate his body by killing animals, right? That's that's from Go. That's from Go. And then the next one is about like a disgraced school teacher. He's a drunk who lives in a tent out in like a wooded hillside by a rail depot, and he sees like a grotesque woman with like translucent mammaries, and she's the size of like George Mirasan, and she drops a bundle with what sounds like a baby off the back of a train that appears out of nowhere. So like that sort of stuff. It's like, it's phantasmagorical. Um, it's but at the same time, it's phantasmagorical. It's grotesque. It's uncomfortable. But at the same time, I think the characters are pretty, in their way grounded. Like when you're listening to this guy, this homeless guy, this disgraced school teacher, this alcoholic, you get to go through his thought process throughout the story, and you're just like, wow, this is kind of like what a regretful person sounds like, a person who has had, all of their potential. They wasted it, and had opportunities, and they thumbed their noses at the world that was waiting for them to succeed. And also a freaky baby and a giant woman with see-through breasts.
I totally see the Lovecraft in that. Like this.
Yeah, exactly. No, Lovecraft is like low-hanging fruit these days, you know? He's everywhere, and like the easiest thing is to be like, it's like, yeah, if I was Lovecraft, I'd write it where the train had a sign on the back that said no colors allowed. Yeah. Just I don't know. He would, but also like he didn't do characters. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, no, he was. I'll always love Lovecraft. I don't have to like the guy because I don't have to meet the guy. I don't got to hang out with the dude.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, he's. It's kind of like in my mind, it's kind of like Tolkien and Lewis, as they both were kind of because they were close friends, and they both wrote these things, and Lewis wrote great characters, but very scant. Like it's very much and this and this and this and this. Whereas Tolkien was all about the history, and it's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some elves and they're doing
Yeah.
stuff, and it's so it's the same thing. As he's interested in the he. I don't think he ever understood people, so he wrote
Yeah.
like the best he could for them, and he understood the weird. That's what he was into. So
Yeah. No, yeah, I think that's pretty insightful. And the idea of like you couldn't come up with a better example because C.S. Lewis was like, I think he was great at fleshing out characters, and Tolkien, like, he was like doing whole ethnographies
yes, yes,
and languages. Like the amount of work, I'm like, I like writing. I could never like writing this much because this isn't even writing. This is research,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But he was an academic. And yeah, I think every author offers what they can, you know? And some people have something to offer that's more accessible to most readers. Um, I think that like the like all horror authors, I've read a shitload of Stephen King, and he's sort of like I think he evokes sort of like I heard this indie band first feelings in people. So like horror authors don't like to cop to liking him, but you know, he was a guy. His popularity is due to the fact that he writes I think the darkness of human beings very realistically,
Oh yeah.
you know. And there's nothing we like rubbernecking a car crash, you know. There's nothing we like bad news,
Yeah.
you know. You know, like I remember I was on a trip. Oh my God. I was on a trip with my brother. We were out in Indiana, and we were just like picking up on the difference between New York and in Indiana. Because like when we had left New York, there was a sort of like cop shot in the head today on patrol. I'm like, wow, that's dark. And then we're watching the news in Indianapolis, and it's like today, man who runs a pickleball league embezzles all the money and gives it back. And I'm like, that's not a story. You can't you can't present something that's already resolved to people, you know?
I
You,
th- that kind of stuff I feel like because I lived in Flint for a little while and I grew up in a small town. And in the small town, I remember a story of a young woman who killed her parents brutally with a hammer. Barely made the news. But anything that
wow.
happened in Flint always made the news. And it's because Flint's so big,
Yeah.
relatively speaking, for a city, but like it's big enough that they can't hide anything.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that like they try to hide, but there's so much
Yeah.
in small towns they can just kind of like, yeah, that happened, but like right now, like right now they like, oh, hey, we discovered four bodies on a property, and the guy had picked up a homeless woman, and she ran away naked, and like this is literally happening, and people are like, when are you gonna? It's a serial, he was a serial killer, right? And they're like, we don't know what's happening. Like okay, just right.
More coming up. I don't know.
Pickleball league, what?
Yeah. But like I think lots of places have that, local news is it's the best because it's like you can see what it's like to produce a show that's contingent on headlines that like the national media conglomerates have already taken, right? So like I remember being in Philadelphia, which is where I grew up, and like they'd have you know like 9/11 would have just happened. They come on the local news and there'd be like, well, in another week, the hot air balloon will be back to the Philadelphia Zoo. Get in line so you can go on your hot air balloon ride. And it's like, you know, it's
Well, yeah, it's funny because yeah, they have that to be like, and like 1,100 people died, blah 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 blah, and the hot air balloons are coming next week. And everybody's like, what?
exactly.
Like we're going to the B roll, we're going to the next part, we're
Exactly.
going to the B. Like
Oh, the local news is the king of that, just like, and Mr. Memphis Davis's death marks the extinction of his entire family line that can trace itself all the way back to the Mayflower. Tomorrow's the apple harvest. It's just like, just get the segments in when you can,
yeah,
man.
oh yeah, it's like well yeah, get to the fun stuff. Like the cat show's coming.
The cat show. The cat show. Oh, yeah. The world is such a weird, it's like filled with like so many idiosyncratic people, because it's just like you would not believe how many people go to the cat show. I have no experience with the cat show, but I just know that there's a cat show and there's like 3,000 people going to it.
I wonder if they ever had famous cats that like. See, that's the next. That's I got to get that. I got to get that going. Is that's the next thing? Is that you get famous influencer cats like that's $100 for their paw print. Meow. You want to give them a scritch? That's 150.
Yeah. Oh my God. This and they're like cats aren't like Tom Hanks, they're like Greta Garbo, Like they don't want you that's like I don't know, like you're here, you're not here, I don't care, I'm
Yeah,
indifferent,
and that's why people will pay real good money for it because they're like, I know you don't want to see me, and I want to see you more.
I know. Just like all those like mothers and families where like the sons eventually join the fathers to be harsh towards the mothers. Like those are the ladies that are going to the cat show, you know? And it's like, I love you. And the cat scratches her and then she's like, oh, that's okay. It's not your fault. I
Yes.
understand.
Shouldn't have worn that perfume.
That was my mistake.
Yeah. My bad, baby. All right, so I'm going. I want to because I want to make sure you get your full Megillah. What is? Do you have a favorite story in the collection?
Yeah, there's a story called The Golden Mile, and it's about this guy. He's a security guard at the Philadelphia Art Museum, and he's asked by well, like one of the archivists to come help relocate like a trunk that's filled with like a bequest that someone gave the museum. And something happens where like he discovers this dog collar, and the person he's going to get the trunk with accidentally cuts her hand open, spills blood all over the collar, which activates it. And then there's sort of like this hypnagogic psychedelic turn in Philadelphia, and there's like all where there's this boulevard of many nations flags, which is like a real avenue in Philadelphia. Now there's pictures of like this huge sort of mastiff like dog, and and he's dressed up with like I would say clownery, but like grotesque clownery. So like instead of, like a spritz bulb flower on the chest, there's like some sort of limb that's pinned into like literally into the meat of its body. And I loved writing it, and it's 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 like it's so weird. It stands apart for its weirdness in like a solid block of very, very weird shit.
What do you hope readers come away with after they've read the book?
Um, well, hopefully not a hefty bill at the shrink, but um honestly, I'm always hoping that there's a reader out there, and it could just be one. But like if there's someone out there who reads my book, and this is a little like, I don't know, maybe it's arrogant to want this, but like if there's a reader out there who reads my book and they're as profoundly affected as one of my favorite works of horror, that to me would be like an uncommon success, something that's like, I don't know. I think generally unachievable, actually. You know, I think that you can like. There's lots of people who write great books, kick-ass stories, but like, I remember reading Reggie Oliver, who's like really not my wheelhouse. He kind of writes, like M.R. James style, ghost stories bordering on weird fiction. And I remember finishing his book, and I just closed it, and I had one of those moments where I was just like wow, that book kicked my ass. Yeah. And it could be for any number of reasons. It could be because, the writing was so good, or the he just like he had all these great lines. I remember I heard one of his lines was like, Philistines are not to be argued with, they're to be hated, you know? And I just like I'm like I want somebody to read my stuff and maybe say like, wow, I wish I wrote that. No. Which is that's a whopper. That's like an egotistical thing to say, but that's what I want.
I think that's fair though. That's not that because that's not even like I want someone to say I was the greatest author. It's no, it's like you want to connect with somebody that's I mean, I would think anybody who puts a record out wants them to be like, man, I wish I could play, guitar like that, drums, sing like that. Like
Yeah.
that's because that's the kind of thing is you admire them and kind of envy that, and then you're like, what if I can do that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's a challenge. So like
It's
that's no,
like
that's cool. So we're time is slipping away.
for all of us.
I know,
For
right? So you've written a novel, novels, like and you've done short fiction. Do you have a preference?
Right now, short fiction because I've been writing short fiction right now. But there, yeah, it's like it's it depends on the season, like with all things. I don't like what I liked when I was in my 20s. I think if I did, I would probably be dead. Um, so I'm sure I'll come back around to it. The novel's like it's a really awesome art form. Like you're not rushed. The thing about short stories, which is kind of a pain in the ass, is like you got to get to the meat of it, and you have to like have some sort of you have to communicate something in a very finite, very clear way. Otherwise, someone just read, like your reading comprehension rule book from social studies, basically. You know there's a fine line between like experimental short fiction and gobbledygook, you know? I mean, the line's there, but there are some artists out there who will test you and ask you to try and find that line, you know? And like, listen, I do that sometimes, you know? I do that sometimes. Like, I'm writing a story right now. And it's just like, you just like, I think they have meaning, but maybe not. Just like words like soot black, the night, silver, death, fog. I mean, not that trite, but like something like that. I, but short stories are great. It's also like you get to cover a lot more ground. Like you have an idea. You're not in the novel. The difficulty with the novel is you're stuck with the idea for half a year at least. Like I have another idea, and you're like pushing away. You're like, no, I can't do that. I have to write it. I have to write the story that I have grown to hate with every fiber of my being, because it just like it's like a leech on my body now, and the creative parts of my brain. I don't know. They're both great. Probably shared stories right now.
Awesome. Now to wrap things up, it went quick. Where can folks find your work? And especially Infernal Tramps. That's like I said, fourth coming out July 15th. Where can they find it?
You can pre-order Infernal Tramps on Jeff Bezos's auction house of dystopia, also known as Amazon. So just type in Infernal Tramps by Alex Grass. And when you go to buy, whatever thing you won't remember that you bought when it comes in the mail. And you can also go to infernaltramps.com, and you can find me on Instagram. Although probably, that'll only last as long as I'm pushing the book. I just want to be honest. And
That's
then it'll come back when I'm pushing another book, and I'll just be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Please still cater to me."
totally fair. I can't thank you enough, Alex, for making some time to talk. This has been a delight. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I loved it. I had a great time.
Thank you. You take care.
You too.
Bye. That was an awesome conversation. A lot of laughs. And his book Infernal Tramps sounds fantastic. And if you are into Bizarro Lit, it sounds like that's going to be up your alley, and just kind of really, really gross fun short fiction. I think that's going to be perfect for you. It comes out July 15th, as he said. You can find him on Instagram. Look up Alex Grass, and he'll be around during the cycle of the book. And you can order the book on Amazon, and you can find it at infernaltramps.com. I thank him one last time. As for me, you can always find my stuff at spookychris.com, all of my podcasts and all my other interviews on your least favorite podcasting app, and all of my own fiction and all that stuff. Links to that at spookychris.com, and all my blogs and movie reviews and this and that. I thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great day, night, morning, ever after.